Well, good day. Welcome to Martalks. You're about to spend some time with Kyle Barz, the Global Head of Technology for Mars, our favorite candy brand on the planet, talking about e-commerce with me, Daryl Rosenstein, the moderator here at Martalks, where we discuss e-commerce technology and hopefully have the cooperation of the technology that we require in order to do so. We're also being joined by Casper Rasmussen, the Global VP of Valtech and the president of the MACH Alliance, who's going to talk to us about their working with Mars through the adoption of composable commerce. So to start off, Kyle, can you tell us a little bit about how you managed to wangle your way into the leadership role at M&M's?
Yeah, sure. First, glad to be here. I started my journey with Mars back in June of 2000, so I've been with the organization for a little bit over 24 years. I had the opportunity to write the first e-commerce application at Mars. We have a small brand known as Ethel Chocolates based in Las Vegas. That's kind of a crown jewel of the Mars family, really based around gourmet box chocolates. And like I said, they brought me in to write that first e-commerce application. It was kind of a very different back then. It was a one-man band, one-man shop to do both all the UI and all the development, etc. But proud to say that we got the site launched by the end of that summer of the 2000 timeframe. And from there, it really went on to do a lot of iterating in the e-commerce space. Mars had this concept to launch other direct-to-consumer brands, take the learnings from them, see if they could scale. Some of them we took the learnings from and shut down. Some of them we scaled up. One of the big ones that we scaled up was being able to actually personalize M&Ms. You could go pick your different colors, provide text, and eventually we launched the capability to also upload images, et cetera, to actually print on the candy itself. So I had the opportunity to be a part of that team that launched that whole product, including, of course, the whole e-commerce site experience that was around that. Went on from there to look after a lot of the back-end systems that also enabled our e-commerce and our retail stores. I took a little bit of a break from the e-com and retail area and went to the traditional sales side of Mars, looking after a lot of our digital sales capabilities that enabled our global sales teams around the world. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, kind of got the itch to come back and look after retail and e-commerce again. And that was when we started on our journey to go down the composable commerce route in both our e-commerce platform as well as some of our back-end enterprise systems.
Well, thank you for that intro. I would mention, I do remember you could order your own labels on the M&Ms, and they didn't take any of my suggestions.
No, no.
And they were good. They were good. And, the space limitation thing, I think that was bogus. That was bogus.
Well, small candy, you can only print so much on that.
Yeah, but there's so much to be said when you're about to eat chocolate, really. So, Kyle, I appreciate you joining us, but we've also got Casper with us. Casper, what did you do to get yourself in this position? I mean, gosh, you actually had to be responsible for making sure when they pressed go, it was going to work.
Indeed. Yes, that's the life of digital execution, isn't it? So Thank you very much for having me. I'm basically similar to Kyle, born and raised in technology, specifically focused around verticals like retail, CPG, FMCG, but also industrial manufacturing. I've kind of spent a number of years in specifically B2C commerce, and I'm also fundamentally focused around digital platforms and digital execution. So typically very much direct to consumer and growth orientation. I'm also a technology evangelist. I want to offer the difference. I want to provide alternative pathways, and I want enterprises to avoid the hideous replatforming cycles that slows down innovation. And that's also where Kyle and we got to know one another specifically around the initiatives on M&Ms and across the snacking division at Mars.
Well, Kyle, what got you guys, when did you first hear about composable?
Yeah, so it was sort of in the 2020 timeframe where we had the confluence of several different situations occurring within Mars. One was around the M&M's brand. For the M&M's.com site, we were kind of on this cadence of replatforming every 2 to 4, 3 to 5 years or so. And it was once again at that time to go make a new platform choice and move forward with a new brand, a new e-commerce experience. The second pillar, the second driver for us to evaluate our solutions was really coming from the M&M's brand itself. Historically, the M&M's brand operated in a bunch of different silos, and there was really a strategic intent to make the brand operate more as an ecosystem and create consumer journeys that really one supported the other. And the intent, the desire was really to put M&Ms.com at the heart of all of that to create an amazing consumer experience. The third kind of real driver that was going on was similar to what I described earlier, in that Mars had an ambition to do more within the direct-to-consumer space. And a lot of the direct-to-consumer brands that were starting were going and identifying their own D2C platform solutions. And they were investing into those platforms to create their own bespoke experiences. And we really thought internally there had to be a better way to enable these different brands to go to market in a much faster way and really leverage the scale of Mars. And so it was really with those three main drivers that we went and evaluated what were we going to do, what was the next platform that we were going to choose. And to be fair, we did start with the kind of default assumption that we would go pick another one of your traditional monolithic players that were out there at the time. And as we started to talk to some of our external experts, certainly as we started to talk to some of our internal technology leaders, they really, once we described to them what our ambitions were, particularly around these consumer journeys, particularly around creating world-class customer experiences, they had this provocation to go explore the composable route. And that's where we started to engage some of the folks like Valtech with Casper to really bring more expertise, more outside-in perspective to help us understand what the best path forward was. And that ultimately is what led us down the path to going towards composable.
Well, I'm curious, did you first speak with an external consulting firm, or did you directly request information from the vendor, from Commerce Tools?
No, we first, like I said, first our initial default assumption was to go down this path of one of the traditional monolithic players, and through that journey, we engaged some of the deeper experts in the space, the likes of some of your traditional solution integration companies, and they're the ones that really provoked what the best path forward was for us. And it, like I said, it really came from the creating those great consumer experiences and creating the platform that would allow us to continuously evolve versus having to do this constant replatforming every few years.
Well, when you say an expert, this is kind of goes to the heart of what I do on the daily, is to find somebody you can actually trust, that's going to take you to the promised land. What was it about Valtech that inspired your confidence?
Yeah, I think Valtech brought a lot of experience, and to be fair, at that time frame, there wasn't many partners out there that actually could speak to having practical experience in deploying what we were looking for. Not only was it experience in doing composable, but they also had experience doing it for other very well-known retail brands and doing it in brands that had similar ambitions to us and creating multi-channel experiences. So it wasn't just about the .com part of it. It was also about taking the platform, taking those capabilities and extending them into our own retail stores, and potentially someday in the future, even extending those capabilities into third-party retailer stores to create that kind of seamless consumer experience across multiple touch points.
I think that when you're engaging someone on the outside, there is certainly a presumption that they're going to bring more to the table than you have, in terms of knowledge of vendors, in terms of knowledge of other customer successes. What were your keys in terms of looking at customer success stories, did you actually interview any customers of Commerce Tools, because you ended up going with Commerce Tools before you selected them? Or did you interview other customers of Valtech?
Yeah, we actually wound up doing both, really.
Okay.
In the choice of doing, in the choice of picking Valtech, they provided us as a part of our RFP process. They provided us with reference customers that we were able to speak to and get a level of confidence in how Valtech interacted with them. And similar, as you know, in choosing to go the composable path, there are many solutions that we then need to go identify to make the whole ecosystem work. And we had the opportunity, both with Commerce Tools as well as several other components that we ultimately selected, frequently spoke with existing customers to try to get a better understanding of the solutions from their existing customers.
Was there a proof of concept that you required from Commerce Tools?
We did actually in multiple ways, to be fair. So Commerce Tools was the first major component that we selected after going down the decision to go down the composable path. We selected Commerce Tools as the first component. And actually that allowed us to do a couple of things. One, we did work with Commerce Tools for them to take us through their tool. Now, what's interesting, of course, about Commerce Tools, and particularly at the time, they didn't necessarily have a front end that made it very easy for them to show us the platform, right? It's a set of APIs. And from a business user's perspective, it's kind of hard to understand what that really means, right? So we then went down the path of starting to make our selection around what is the UI technology that we want to use, what's our content management system that we want to use. And in doing that, we also had them work with Commerce Tools to develop prototypes, to develop proof of concepts. But I'd say is even more interesting, and the part that I really love about this era that we live in today, is that we were actually able to do it ourselves as well. So even over a weekend, over a couple of weeks, both in the desire to learn and the desire to prove the possibilities to internal stakeholders, we were also able to develop our own POCs to learn and to show how it would work. So it wasn't just completely dependent upon third party. We could stand these things up internally ourselves.
So what tools were you using?
In terms of the tools to do our own rapid prototyping, so the nice part, specifically with Commerce Tools, is they did actually have starter kits that they had open sourced. And we were able to go pull down those starter kits and kind of, reskin those things so that it made more sense to our internal stakeholders, make it look more like our brand versus the starter kit brand. And again, really use that to show what's possible in a short amount of time. And it made believers internally.
So before you guys are even live on the platform, you're downloading their reskinning technology and putting out betas of what your site would look like with the new technology.
Yeah, of course, very much internally focused. We weren't releasing these things to the consumers, but we were able to make an experience work from landing on a homepage all the way to checking out and placing an order.
Okay, did your head explode when you could do that? It's like, okay, this would have taken a month if I'd been working with any other major enterprise scale platform on the planet.
Yeah, first, I would say a couple things. One, the access to being able to actually do that, right? To being able to log into Commerce Tools and even just spinning up a free trial account. You don't traditionally see that with many players that are out there in the enterprise software space anyways.
With none. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Unless you're looking at maybe Elastic Path or, potentially BigCommerce, but not at the enterprise scale you're looking at. I mean, was that like a mind-blowing experience for you? Was that an aha moment for you and the team that you might be onto something here?
It certainly was. It is what helped us make the case that this was the right direction to go.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good for you. You actually made it that far. Just because I've spent 25 years placing enterprise software salespeople, do you remember the name of the sales guy that actually worked with you at Commerce Tools?
Good question. I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember off the top
Oh
of my
man,
head.
I'm sure he's listening and he's crushed, or she's listening to their crush. I was like, yeah, but I wanted to bring that up. I had to know. Do you even remember the person? I was like, no, but they were there. They were the ones with the big pieces of paper that you had to sign. They were
Yes,
there at one point.
Of course.
Well, let me just pivot here to Casper. All right, so here we are at the beginning of the process. They're already achieving some pretty spectacular functionality in demoing their solution in the POC. At that point, what are you saying to your team?
So specifically, we always advocate for POCs and testing things in reality, right? Getting out of the hypothetical slideware and rubber hit the road. So we're totally aligned with how Kyle went about his internal stakeholder management and stakeholder buy-in. But there is a difference in executing a reskin POC versus integrating and implementing commerce into the enterprise. And what we started to really focus on was the actual strategy for how, meaning, okay, we understand the digital reimagine, the strategy around the connected ecosystem and this new brand universe. We understand some of the scale expectations around the multi-brand, but how do we start to basically take bites off that elephant? And we started to really focus on a incremental strategy for how to unlock value fast and also get work into production early. And we fundamentally ended up establishing a roadmap that looked at business growth and business value at the same time as we went through technology modernization. So we started a number of pathways around the specific personalization capability that Kyle spoke about early on in his introduction, the design your own and personalization of lentils for how to cloud modernize that. All the same time as we were building out a core commerce capability that looked to basically lift and shift some of the standard capabilities away from their incumbent, through to us expanding that in and starting to execute on the new brand strategy and the new customer experience. So we found like a multi-mode operating model in how we started to basically raise the floor in doing a bunch of cloud modernization and move services and data services into the cloud for easy access, all the way through to us also realizing those customer experience expectations that the business was sitting with. So value delivery and incremental transformation was something that we really focused in order to basically find a way to break down the elephant.
Yeah, that was a big elephant.
It was, yeah.
As you said, Kyle, previously it's like Mars was the technology version of Sybil with 13 different personalities. How many different platforms existed throughout Mars?
I used to say, effectively, if you can name the platform, it probably exists somewhere at Mars for sure. There is an untold number of different platforms.
Blue Martini hiding in there for the
Yes.
OGs out there in the audience.
Yes, exactly.
It was in there. Well, geez, that was my first blush with e-commerce, by the way, back in 2000. I put somebody at US Web CKS that was standing up Blue Martini for Levi's. What a disaster! But I had to ask.
When I first started my career, we heavily used Ecometry, which was acquired by Blue Martini. So I certainly have some experience there.
I love Rob Nybauer. Did you get to know Rob?
I knew the name. I don't think I've ever met him.
He was another guy that was on the other side of the table, moving the paper that you were signing. But anyway, yeah. So we're talking about dozens. Is that fair to say? Dozens of different platforms. All right, and now you have one, correct?
Well, at Mars, we still have multiple platforms, to say the least. We are on a journey to try to consolidate. But we have started first with M&Ms as the big platform, and now we've recently redid Atholim as well, and then continuing to look to consolidate onto the global platform.
Yeah, I mean, but essentially, one of the major business benefit you were looking for is to get rid of all of these different individual silos, these individual instances of Tom, Dick, and Harry commerce monolith, and you can have them all on commerce tools.
Yep. on the whole ecosystem. It's certainly made up of more than just commerce tools, but yeah, it's a core components of it.
What else, by the way, is in your stack? What did you choose for a CMS?
Yeah, so the big components are Amplience as the content management system. And then we have used GraphQL as kind of the federation layer to stitch all of the different services together. We're using AWS to do most of the hosting, where we've built code or to deliver our data federation environment is coming out of AWS. And then we used Next.js to write the whole experience.
Got it. Do you have an OMS vendor?
We are currently on a journey to put in a new order management system.
Okay.
And
Fluent.
we didn't go down that route. We're looking at Sterling as our OMS.
Okay.
And then so right now we effectively are using SAP as our order management system in addition to our ERP and today's operating model.
Are you doing the same thing with a PIM?
Today the PIM is coming out of Commerce Tools.
Okay. All right.
No third-party PIM.
Adopt any other front-end technology?
We have nothing, like we didn't use any search at this point. We did evaluate different search technologies, but haven't necessarily gone down the routes. We're continuing to use sort of Commerce Tools search functionality. We have some A/B testing that we've put in as a part of the front-end environment.
So you're kind of you're in it. You're in it. You're aware. Okay, I've got options here for content and for what I use for product information and what I use for digital assets, and I've got this toolkit that works just fine right now from Commerce Tools. But if I wanted to do something else, the APIs are open. It's going to be easy to do that. It's going to be very straightforward. You guys have you've broken the glass ceiling, as it were, here. I mean, a very popular term to do. So you'd say at this point, since you've swapped out the beating heart, the merchandising engine, and the OMS, your transition to composable is about 2/3. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, certainly depends upon how broad you want to look at it in terms of the spectrum. From an e-commerce standpoint, from a digital experience the consumer interacts with, that has all gone towards the composable architecture with the composable partners in place. We have since, in the last 12 months or so, pivoted, and now we're looking internally as well. So whereas historically we'd run one monolithic solution to drive all of the business, we're also looking at how we can decompose the business and try to adopt the same principles and similar architecture with more of a putting associate experience at the heart of it instead of consumer experience, but allowing us to really look at where we want to truly drive more value, perhaps where we want to move at a faster pace in terms of our internal capabilities. We're looking at how we architect around that concept, and have started on that journey. We're probably about halfway through.
Got it. But from a speed and a flexibility perspective, you guys must feel like you're in a much better place now.
Certainly, yeah. We've moved from what was historically every couple of months to quarterly releases, and down to today we run about 2 to 3 week release cycles to move things into production. So we're in a drastically different spot than we were historically.
Yeah. 75% faster, if not more. And you guys, so let's talk about your team. I mean, obviously you had to go from a legacy coding environment to a modern environment. Your developers are now working with React, Slash, and JDOT. And, I don't even know if you had agile development or Scrum methodology beforehand, but you had to make that move. You had Valtech in the trenches with you. What role did Valtech play in taking your team to the next level and using the new tools? And then when they left, having them in a position where they own the microservices.
Yeah, so that has certainly been quite the change journey by itself. Um, as I mentioned, when I first started at Mars, I was a one-man shop. So we had evolved a little bit since then, but not much. We did have what I historically would have called good project managers at Mars, and we heavily depended upon third parties to do the actual hands-on keyboard, technical development, and architecture type work on our behalf. With this move towards composable, one of the important parts of that migration was certainly the organizational evolution as well. And in order to really take advantage of the capabilities, we knew we needed to bring more of that technical quotient, the technical capabilities, into our own team. And so when we started on the project and on the program to deliver composable commerce, to deliver M&Ms.com, Valtech absolutely took the lead with the architecture designs, with the hands-on keyboard developers, etc. And then over time, we have started to increase our engineering team and start to build that muscle internally with recruiting architects, with recruiting engineers, with recruiting UI design team members to upskill ourselves in order to really be able to maximize the potential of the platform. And that's been about a journey over the last year and a half to 2 years or so. Valtech helped us quite a lot, and helping to scope out what those roles actually were, what the job descriptions were, and sometimes even participating in the interviewing process to assess the skill sets of the candidates. And now we're starting to see the evolution where Mars is able to take on more of the responsibility. So we have our own feature team internally. We have our own architects internally, and they're taking more of the accountability, more of the responsibility for the ongoing management of the platform. And the role of Valtech starts to shrink, right? That they're still there to play a strategic role in helping us guide the platform. But the actual day-to-day development is starting to shrink a little bit. And our internal team is taking on more of that responsibility.
I mean, it's gotta make you happy to have more capability, to have more control of your own destiny, which composable architecture does. Composable architecture gives you a great deal more control over not just your user experience and your digital experience, but how you actually build things from an architectural perspective. And that, oddly enough, is new to a lot of folks in your chair. I'm thrilled. One of the reasons Valtech is here is because they do such a great job of enabling teams. And from a recruiter's perspective, developers especially, if you're not using cutting edge technologies that are fun to work with, they will not stick around. And Composable has given CPG brands and retailers a great set of exciting technologies that the developers really enjoy working with, that both allows you to recruit higher level professionals than you prior would have. I mean, let's face it, you are a wonderfully odd duck, Kyle. You've stuck around. You've hung in there.
Indeed.
You must have a sweet tooth.
Indeed.
You must have a sweet tooth, and they must have an incredible dental there at Mars for you to stick around that long. But it also, because you had a long-term vision. So, I mean, tell me, how happy are you to be in this position with this team?
Yeah, so I can talk to a few things. Certainly, from a personal standpoint, one of the parts that I have enjoyed the most in working at Mars over the last 2.5 decades is the diversity of challenges. Every single day, there's something new to learn, something new to make an impact with, and the pace at which we can make an impact is incredible. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, to be fair. But you can always make an impact and always learning something new, which I completely love. One of the challenges in terms of building this composable architecture, one of my worries, in fact, was how are we going to recruit the engineering talent that we need in order to successfully operate the platform? A lot of times your top talent doesn't necessarily think of Mars as the place to go. So we did have to get intentional about telling our story in order to attract talent into Mars. Is often why I would do sessions like this, tell others what we're doing, and actually had people hear about what exciting things we are doing here and got people interested to come join us as an organization. And certainly now, once they have joined, the one of the most common feedbacks that I hear is the opportunity and exposure to more of the modern technology that they get to work with. We're far from perfect, right? We're still evolving for sure in terms of building our muscle around running a good engineering practice, running a good architecture practice, how we measure ourselves and how we continuously improve. But the team gets to be along for that journey, and that's the part that I frequently hear the most that they love.
I mean, being able to evaluate new technologies from an API-led cloud native perspective, it must feel so liberating for you.
It is for sure. Certainly, one of the historical challenges that we had was the performance and the scalability. I would frequently spend my Thanksgivings and Black Fridays on the phone on the crisis calls on how are we going to manage the situation du jour. Now that we have had some of our big peaks under our belt on the new architecture, these aren't things that we have to worry about anymore, right? This is kind of these are now table stakes, the bread and butter, where the platform automatically scales and deals with the traffic without us having to get involved. It is fantastic. Helps us all sleep better at night, which is important. Good quality of life.
And I think sleep for someone that's on such a high sugar diet would be doubly important. I mean, really critical for you.
Indeed, sleep is important. Yes,
you can only eat so many M&Ms before it's like, wow, I crash. After about a pound, I just have to take a nap. That's usually where I'm at. Well, I guess the big question I have for you now is, for speaking to other CTOs of global organizations that have dozens of instances of e-commerce platforms out there that are looking to composable. What kind of advice would you give you in considering a move to composable?
I would say a couple of key areas. One, the journey isn't necessarily super easy. And so when we started, we had to make sure that we had very strong sponsorship, very strong support, so that when the first challenge comes to bear, that we're not immediately switching directions. We certainly had our fair share of challenges. We had our fair share of it took us a little bit longer than what we had originally anticipated. We had situations where we couldn't necessarily get a commercial contract in place, et cetera. And it took good, strong sponsorship in order to help us navigate through those difficult times. The other part, and we just spoke to this a little bit, is really focusing on the culture shift. We went from what was highly a project-led to now being a product-led organization. That is such an important change in how you make sure that you maximize the potential of the investment that you're making into the architecture. We had to start educating internally, start building stakeholders' understanding of what it really meant to shift from what was historically a highly waterfall methodology with very clear deliverables on certain dates to what is now more of an agile methodology with product backlogs and more of a roadmap approach instead of a waterfall approach. I think the other part, the last part I'd probably touch on, is around the concept of strangulation. And while we started with it a little bit, I would, given the opportunity to redo it, I would even push harder on that. And if you're not familiar with what strangulation is really moving different parts of your application, moving different parts of your ecosystem over to the composable approach versus doing it big bang or doing it all at once. And like I said, we did start on that. We did move towards a different content distribution network. We did take parts of our critical experience and shifted those over to composable. But I think we could have even done a better job at shifting parts of it more in more iterations versus doing such big chunks like we did. That that story, those values, the business results that you get from doing that early on also help to build confidence with your stakeholders and set yourself up for even more success.
Well, when I think about, that key sponsorship, I mean, that's you. You were responsible for communicating to all of these stakeholders. Here is the long-term vision. Here's where we want to go. And essentially you're holding the short stick. So essentially you're the one who's got to champion this, hustle this through the various stages. So what you appreciate now, obviously, is that we could have gone even faster. It would have been even easier. We could have done it sooner had we just pulled the plug on our merch engine, pulled the plug. I mean, it worked. The water looked great. I should have just jumped in, is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's to an extent that is accurate. The other part is there are now many, many more resources than what we had when we started our journey back in 2020, right? You have the likes of the MACH Alliance, which help to bring all of the industry partners to the table and really think through, kind of what some pre-composed solutions would actually look like to help you drive value even faster. Like I said, when we started on this journey, we were more on our own, right? We had to stumble a few times in order to figure out our way through the journey. One that we're very glad that we did. We're definitely seeing the business value from. But I think it, to your point, is even easier today than it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, I think Casper would agree that the MACH Alliance has done a wonderful job, but just the composable ecosystem developing. I mean, Valtech has been one of the marquee partners globally for all of the composable vendors, particularly the ones that have joined the MACH Alliance. And I've been nothing but impressed with everyone that I've interacted with there. So I think you picked a great partner. I think you might have got lucky. Just there's an opportunity, maybe a little lucky. But Casper, any closing thoughts from you? I'm sorry we've had you on so much.
No, I've really honestly enjoyed to observe as much as anything. So thank you very much for speaking through the story, Kyle. I just want to get back into the cultural component because composability is more than a technology problem. And there is a big digital execution and cultural component in that retailers often underestimate. And I think one of our unique edges, yes, we understand the tech, we know how to deliver, run programs, like all of the foundations, but there needs to be the right spirit in the engagement you do with clients. And we, for instance, empower, don't overpower our clients. We look to enable, meaning this notion of internalizing and in-housing and building up maturing capability was known to us, and we encourage it every day. So that is not something we see as being negative nor conflicting with our own interests. That's something that we support and really push through in the daily work with the client. And I think that mindset, that spirit is super important to make sure that you ultimately enable client success in all of it. Because without it, you're just ending up creating another channel of dependency that we're not interested in, and Mars for sure is not interested in. So focus on some of those cultural components and don't underestimate them in a composable journey like this.
Making an organization move from a legacy architecture to composable architecture it's one of empowerment, it's one of discovery, it's one of cultural transition. But I think, the joyful part of it is that you've got business leaders that now know that they can come to you with ideas for where to take the business, and that you now have development teams that can say, yes, we can do that. We can do it. Well, Kyle, with that, thank you again for joining us, for dealing with the numerous technical hurdles that this audience is not going to have to deal with to record this. And Casper, thank you for making me get up early. I just want to really express my appreciation for that.
You're welcome. An early start is a good start. No,
I'm going to just change my life around. I'm going to go composable.
There you go.
All right.
Very good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right. Well, we're gonna, milkshakes are gonna be on me at Shop Talk, fellas.
Thank you. Looking
Sounds
forward
good.
to it.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks for listening to Martalks. Please leave a review and a rating on your platform of choice. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major podcast platforms. To find out more about how the Rosenstein Group can help you find the right leaders for your client development teams in MarTech and e-commerce, please visit our website, rosensteingroup.com.